A sweeping declaration kind of ends up meaning nothing unless you have a plan. So before we dive in, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Samantha Yetton. I am a life coach and a doula. I work both general coaching with women and motherhood, conscious parenting coaching with moms. This self-care topic has come up a lot in groups that I run as well as with private clients. So it felt like a good topic to share publicly. If you are chronically overstretched and when you go to relax, you're doing things like wine, Netflix, Instagram, you're doom scrolling, you are numbing out and using these escapism tools, you're eventually going to get to a point where you're kind of a shell of your former self and you're not functioning the way that you want to be. And that leads to a lot of confidence and self-worth issues. So it really is kind of a vicious cycle. So we'll talk about all of that today. So spa stuff like face masks, bubble baths, all of that kind of thing is fabulous, but it's not enough. As we grow up and become grown women, we really need more tools in our toolboxes, and we need a broader understanding, a deeper understanding of foundational self-care, moving through the world as someone who cares for ourself. And that has to be more than manicures and face masks and things like that. So a common thing that's going to come up with a lot of these topics is that it's not just that we need to change a specific behavior, it's that we need to start having the habit of looking upstream from the behavior. So one of the things we'll talk about is saying no, but what might it feel like if instead of just learning how to say no gracefully and confidently and things like that, what if instead we looked upstream and we looked at, why do people keep asking us to do things that we want to say no to? Do we have a history as kind of a doormat? Do we have a history of being a yes man or woman and always being the person that people know they can dump a task on? So since we teach people how to treat us, what might happen if you started living in a way where you joyfully and proudly decline things that aren't aligned with you? Pretty quickly, people stop asking. So yes, we get good at the skill of saying no, but we also create a life where we have to say no less often because people know us. One last thought before we dive in is that there's no shame here. So here's what we're not doing tonight. We are not using this information to beat ourselves up. All change begins with awareness. So if all you're able to do is listen through the topics and have awareness around how these things show up in your life and whether or not you're good at them right now or whether or not you'd like to get better at them, that awareness is a really valid and important place to start. In fact, no growth comes unless there's that awareness there. So I want to talk through the unglamorous, the uninstagrammable ways that we can care for ourselves and dive deeper into this relationship between you and you, which is the primary relationship in your life. It also is a relationship that is 50% of all of the other things you're a part of. So your relationship with you is half of your marriage. Your relationship with you is half of your parenting. It's half of you as an employee, as a sister, as a daughter, all of your other relationships. So it's not something to take a back seat. It's not something that should get your attention after everything else. It really is foundational to everywhere else that you show up in your life. So the first thing I want to talk about is boundaries. I want to start by explaining what a boundary actually is because it's one of the biggest misconceptions that people have. A lot of times people will set a rule and call it a boundary. So for example, if you have someone in your family, say your extended family, that keeps bringing up a particular topic that you don't want to talk about. Maybe they're asking about something in your past, or it's a sensitive topic and you don't want to talk about it, but they keep badgering you about it or they keep bringing it up repeatedly. Um, the the place most people go is you're not allowed to talk about that. Don't ask me about that. And so when we say that, we're trying to dictate what another person can do or is doing. Since we have no control over other people, that's not a great place to start. We might hope that they have enough respect for us that they can respect our requests. And it's not to say that we shouldn't be making requests. It's just that that's not a boundary. So a boundary sounds like if you repeatedly bring this up, even after I've asked you not to, I'm going to change the topic. That's like a pretty basic level boundary. You might have plan B, plan C after that if there's someone who is really not respecting you or your boundary, and you might end up um, elevating your boundary to a place where you have to say, I'm going to leave the room if you keep bringing this up. Or even, I'm not going to be able to come to Thanksgiving if you continue to bring this up. Whatever it is, you'll find your levels with people based on how important it is to you and how well they are respecting it. But that's what a boundary is what you will do. Just notice in your life where you are setting rules and calling them boundaries, and then ask yourself, what is the actual boundary here? What will I do? And it puts us in a place of ownership, and it puts us in a place of power to say, I don't need anyone to act differently in order for me to feel okay. A good second point after boundaries in terms of tips for self-care as we look at creating a life that is a good relationship with ourselves: direct and assertive communication. There's a great phrase: clear is kind, unclear is unkind. So a lot of times people will be passive in their language and they will not say what they actually mean because they think it's too aggressive or they don't want to be rude. When in reality, what's actually rude is not saying what you mean to say and not letting someone know where they actually stand with you. So let's take the example of gift giving at a children's birthday party. You got an 8-year-old and someone asks what the child would like for their birthday. And if you, like a lot of women, have been socialized to be nice, you might say, oh, you don't have to get her anything. It's okay. That's not clear. You have not either told them what the child wants or given them like, oh, like books are always great, or experiences. We don't want toys, we don't want more toys coming into the house, whatever, given them the actual information that they were looking for. And you also haven't said, please don't get her something, which might have been what you actually meant. So I know a lot of parents are trying to pare down the amount of stuff that's coming into their spaces because everything that comes into your space is something that you now have to care for and think about. And kids have a lot of stuff already. So maybe what you meant is, we don't want more stuff, please. But that feels maybe a little bit confronting to some people to say that. So we end up with this nicey nice, oh, you don't have to, don't even worry about it. That is not a clear statement. So as we aim to be more clear and direct, we don't need to be aggressive and we don't need to be curt or rude. We just want to say what we actually mean. So if what you actually mean is, Susie would love a gift, here's a list of a few experiences that I know she'd love to receive. Or if you don't want gifts, then say, oh, thank you. We actually don't want anyone to bring gifts. We really mean that. It's not just something that we're saying to be nice. Please don't bring a gift. Gift wise, you could give them a third option, which is to say, we don't want gifts. If you really feel strongly about gifting her something, you can put a $5 bill in a card. Giving them an outlet for that excitement is a great option. The other thing that I want to say about boundaries is that sometimes people find that one of the things that feels crummy in their life is because we get to this place of these like hard stop boundaries where somebody does something for the last time and it's the last straw and we just lose it at them and we set a hard boundary. That feels terrible on both sides of the conflict. So one of the reasons that is happening is because we're not setting the boundaries that we actually want respected early enough. So same concept we talked about before. We're going to go upstream from the behavior that we're trying to change in ourselves. We're going to go upstream and say, why is this happening and why is this becoming necessary for me to do? What can I do before this happens to prevent it in the first place? So if you're finding that you lose your cool, um, and or you're seething because you don't want to have to set the boundary and you're angry with them, but they don't even know it, that all happens because you're not speaking your needs and asking for what you need, or communicating what you will or won't tolerate soon enough. So practicing that in small ways can prevent it from becoming a big blow up situation, um, and can honestly save relationships. So I want to move into talking about self confidence and self trust. When we talk about our relationship with ourselves, instead of calling it buzzy self care, when we call it, this is my relationship with myself, this is how I care for myself, then we can move into thinking about me and myself. Like, I trust myself, I believe in myself, I have confidence in myself. And so the way that we develop self confidence and self trust over time is by making and keeping commitments to ourselves. So if you're feeling really crappy in your body and your soul and nothing feels good, like, go ahead and start with, I'm going to walk every day, or I'm going to drink X amount of ounces before my coffee every morning. That alone can help a lot of people feel better. So if you need these other on ramps in order to get to this place of building a life that is a positive relationship with yourself, those are great places to start. And they can help you cultivate a track record of success in keeping your commitment to yourself, which goes a really long way. Sleep is also absolutely non-negotiable self-care. I know that a lot of us will sacrifice sleep in exchange for almost anything else. It's really easy to get into a mental space where we think, I'll sleep when I'm dead, or oh, it's just a little bit of time, I'll make up for it later, or we develop this persona where we decide, well, the kind of person who can function just fine on 6 hours, 5 hours, 4 hours. We screw ourselves out of the sleep that we need for a lot of different reasons. And sleeping on time and sleeping consistently are two of the things that can make us feel so much better. It's a small thing, but it has huge, huge impact. Our nervous systems are calmer when we've slept. So if you've got young kids and they are loud and constantly making noise and constantly on your body, that's a lot of input for your nervous system, and it's easy to get touched out and overstimulated. You get to that point less quickly if you are well rested. A lot of us do this thing where the kids are in bed and we know that we're freaking tired. We know that we need to stop, drop, and go to sleep. And yet we scroll. And yet we do unnecessary things around the house because we've been trying to get to that thing all day and it just hasn't happened yet. Or we stay up watching a show, and we, again, Netflix, wine, Instagram, all of these numbing out, all of these escapism things. And I get it. You finally have a moment to yourself. Your body is finally your own. The house is quiet. You have 2 seconds to think and just be like, it's quiet, and it's quiet in the house, quiet in your brain. It's wonderful, but it's short-sighted. So it is an hour or two or three, or God forbid more, of zone out time that is cheap. It really is cheap self-care. And the elevated luxury self-care is actually sleep. So we're reaching for these things to feel better instead of reaching for the the harder thing, which is to stop, put it down, whatever it is that you're doing, put it down, put it in the fridge, put it on the charger, like whatever it is, put it down, close your eyes, let it all go. Just know that the most bang for your buck in terms of relaxation and how you're going to feel tomorrow, if you want to have respect for the tomorrow version of you and care for her, she's going to be able to get done better and faster and more efficiently all the things that you think you need to do now after the kids are in bed. The other thing in terms of sleep is that we have a habit of making sweeping declarations this time of year. I'm going to sleep better in 2020, whatever. And good for you. Yay, you. That's fabulous. What's your plan? What is the plan for sleeping better or doing whatever thing it is that you're making a sweeping declaration about? So just like before, we're going to say, that's great. Here's the behavior that you want to change: sleeping better, sleeping more, whatever it is. We're going to go upstream from that behavior and say, what can we do to facilitate that thing, the end result there. And so a sweeping declaration kind of ends up meaning nothing unless you have a plan for how to achieve that. So what time are your kids going to wake you up, or what time do you need or want to get up for the day? Um, how much sleep do you want to have gotten by then? And for moms, how many times are you going to get woken up in the interim? Maybe pad that amount of time. And maybe that means that you're going to sleep with the kids at the same time as the kids. Like, it's a season of life. And sometimes that is the best way we can take care of ourselves. So just that concept again of going upstream and making the necessary adjustments on the front end to facilitate the actual goal of getting more sleep. This next one is expecting and insisting upon equity in your partnership. The conversations, the tough conversations that happen between two parents or two partners in general about the equity of who's doing what and bringing invisible labor out into the light and making it visible and being really honest and clear about how much we're each doing, and how much we're each contributing. Those conversations are deep, deep self-care, because we as women tend to be socialized that all of the household stuff and all of the kids stuff and all of the caretaking, homemaking, cooking, cleaning, hosting, Christmas, birthdays, etc., all of that kind of by default falls to us. And it doesn't have to, by the way, doesn't have to, but the not having to requires expectation setting conversations. And those conversations can be tough because we and our partner were both raised differently. You may have been socialized differently in terms of what a good mother is, what a good father is. Those conversations can be tough and uncomfortable. And they absolutely have to happen for there to be equity in your relationship, which is a big piece of how you feel on a day-to-day basis and how you're taking care of yourself. So it is really important to have those conversations. Feeling your feelings. I'll just touch on this briefly, but a lot of us say things that aren't actually feelings. We'll say, well, I feel like, and then we'll say XYZ, how we feel about something, but never once in what we said did we ever touch on an emotion. So when you find yourself talking about how you're feeling and what you feel like, ask yourself, did I ever actually speak an emotion? So I feel sad, I feel jealous, I feel happy, I feel, whatever the emotions are. I recently heard an example where a woman, her husband came home from work and she said, I feel like I never see you anymore. I feel like I don't matter to you. And so that's, he had come home late from work and she was saying, I feel like I never see you, feel like I don't matter to you. You're not prioritizing me. That's how I feel. And then she was able to catch herself and she realized that's not a feeling, that's a story. That's a story that I am assigning. It's meaning that I'm assigning to what happened. So she asked herself, how do I feel? Well, I feel abandoned when he doesn't come home on time. And she was able to catch herself again, which I thought was so impressive. And she realized that abandoned is not a feeling. Abandoned is, again, still a projection, a meaning that you are assigning to what happened. And so she realized after some more reflection that what she felt was lonely. Lonely is an actual emotion. It's what she felt in her body. It's what she felt emotionally. And so when we show up in a conversation with our partner or anybody else, and we are able to have the self awareness to say, I feel lonely, telling our partner that we feel lonely gets a very different response from someone we love than saying, well, I feel like you don't care. We're assigning that they don't care. And like they haven't even had a chance to say whether or not they care. They probably do. So if we can show up in conversation using feeling words, it makes a big difference in the outcome of those conversations. And that is a way that we can take care of ourselves. The other piece with feelings is when you feel them, they're called feelings for a reason. They live in our body and they are just messengers telling us information about how we feel about something. They're temporary and they move through our body. So I'm going to use anxiety for an example. My anxiety sits right here in my solar plexus. Some people's anxiety comes down their neck and their shoulders and upper back. Some people might feel tightness or different things in other parts of their body, but you can deal with your emotions a lot better if you actually feel your feelings physically. um, Notice at going forward, how does joy feel in your body? How does anger feel in your body? Is it hot? Is it tight? Where physically is it? Is anger in your arms and your fists? Is anger, like heat in your chest? So if you can actually feel your feelings, you will be leaps and bounds ahead of most people. It's a great way to take care of yourself and to be living in reality of how we actually feel instead of what we're assigning to a situation. Okay. Yes, I want you to say no unapologetically. I want you to get good at that skill. That is a great way to take care of yourself so that you've got less on your plate and you're less overstretched and you're less fulfilling the story of I have to be the one to do everything. I have to take everything on. I have to be doing and be doing a lot in order to be valuable and worth anything. So we're going to use our behavior of saying no more often and to more things to dismantle that story. We have worth, we have inherent value, regardless of how many things we say yes to. The more we say no to, we clear space for the yeses that we actually want to say. How many times have you had to say no to like a super cool, fun opportunity because your plate was too full? That sucks. You also might not even be noticing those opportunities for fun, cool, self-fulfilling, feel-good things to come up because there's no room for them. Your brain isn't noticing them because it's too focused on what you have to do and how full your plate already is. And that's a very heavy story to be telling ourselves. It's a very heavy existence to have, to be like, oh God, I'm so busy. My plate is so full. I wish for you more space, more ease, more margins for the fun stuff to catch your attention. And also the the nothingness. Your plate doesn't have to be super full to be as full as you want it to currently be. So lastly, to change your mental set point. So this one is huge and I saved it for last because it is so relevant to lots of different parts of life. I want you to think about changing your mental set point in terms of how many things you're supposed to say yes to before you're allowed to say no to something. I want you to change your mental set point if you're an introvert, how much peopling you can do before you need to break. So maybe change your set point so that you're not peopling so much. You don't feel pressured or you're resisting that pressure to be social. Reduce that set point. Reduce your set point of things on your calendar. Make more white space. Give yourself larger margins to drive places, larger margins to prepare and decompress from things. Change your set point in terms of how much is too much alcohol. Change your set point on your spending. Change your set point in terms of what your financial buffer is. Same goes for like your fridge. What's your set point for like, oh my God, we're out of food and there's nothing to eat? Same thing with your gas tank. Melissa Urban recently talked about how she set a boundary with herself that was life-changing for her, where she used to constantly be like really flirting with running out of gas, or she'd hop in the car and be like racing to get somewhere on time and realize she had to stop for gas. It was non-optional. She had to stop for gas because there was no gas in the car. So she was able to care for herself and build trust with herself by saying, my new set point is half a tank of gas. So when my gas tank gets to half empty or half full, however you want to look at it, that's zero. Go to the gas station because you're on empty. So she retrained her brain to say that half is empty. So never again did she find herself in a pickle. So we're going to reset our set point for all of these things. The other thing that I see on my notes here is sensory input, but a lot of parents don't realize how sensory overloaded they are. So, like, find a new set point for what feels actually good to you, not what feels overstretched, but I can handle it. If you are auditorily sensitive, there are like these little, I think they're called, nope, I don't know what they're called, so I'm not going to guess at it. But it's like a little earbud that you put in that reduces the decibels. It might be a good option. I will leave you with this reminder that this is a self-worth issue. So are you waiting too long to stand up for yourself? Even standing up for yourself to yourself. You are worth it. Please take very good care of yourselves. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you all soon.